Hello, hello. Welcome to With Wisdom, Embodying Energy, Embracing Season. I'm today with my dear Sam and hosting an interview with the beloved Teresa Wilson that will be sharing some wisdom to help us in the pilgrimage through winter. So welcome,
Mm.
welcome Sam, welcome Teresa. Happy to be here.
Good to be here.
Hey, it's lovely to be here. I'm so excited for this episode because I met and got to know Teresa earlier this year, actually, so not that long. But I feel like I kind of feel like you're a sister from another mother. There is a deep connection, and I think that possibly. I think anybody who might have worked with you might feel exactly the same. So you probably have a lot of sisters and brothers all over the place, because there's something around the way that you are, Teresa, that draws people in. And when we go in, we find some parts of ourselves that we might have forgotten. That's a little clue to some of the work that you might be doing. So over to you for a little introduction. Hello.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for the invitation. I'm just feeling the warmth from being with you both. Um, I've completely sidetracked myself because, how do you introduce yourself? But warmth is one of those
Mm,
words. It really matters to me, in the many different ways that you might understand warmth. And I guess part of the reason why I do the work that I do is because it brings more warmth into my
Mhm,
life,
mhm.
actually. It's just an interesting little kind of side note. But yeah, and at least, a slightly less esoteric introduction. I've been a coach for about 12, 13 years. Before that, I worked in community development. And I always wanted to bring those worlds together, ideally, to kind of offer coaching into those places and spaces where people maybe ordinarily couldn't, access coaching or afford to pay for it. So I coached in prisons initially for 5 years. And then latterly, I've done a lot of mental health coaching within organizations. But then my personal journey kind of sort of started to overlay with my professional one. So I had a personal interest in shadow work
Mm,
that really fundamentally and profoundly changed my life. Um, I've always been on a therapeutic journey. The difference with shadow work is it gave me the means to be doing the work myself, for myself and by myself. That was the difference. And it
mm,
was so enabling and such a revelation for me personally. But what I hadn't expected was how much life it would breathe into my coaching.
mm,
And
mm.
because it really brought my coaching to life, I suddenly started to think, well, I wonder if that might be the same for other coaches too. So then offering shadow as a reflective tool for other coaches brings me kind of all the way up to date. That's kind of my mission and my kind of current offer.
mm. Sounds fabulous. And I love this the way that you bring your own learning. And this is about for us as coaches. It is a journey for everybody, but for definitely as a coach to really keep on tapping into that self-awareness piece. Who am I? Who am I, and how am I showing up in the world? And how are you showing up in the world in relation to our clients and obviously our family members? So bringing in that sort of personal journey and realizing that it has a massive impact
Mm,
on every relationship, I think is just
Mhm,
so important.
mm,
For those
mhm,
who are very new to the word shadow, because not everybody who may be watching our videos is a coach or a therapist or in that therapeutic space, but they're here to learn something about themselves. What
mm.
would you kind of say about shadow? What does that mean?
It's 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 all the rest of me that I've forgotten to remember that is
mhm,
me.
mhm,
Mm,
So, I work on the basis and the understanding that, we're born with this incredible capacity for self-expression before we become self-conscious.
mhm,
Babies don't filter the way that they show up depending on who's in the room. They just express, and there's a
mm,
huge range available to all of us. And then we're socialized. So some of that range gets consigned to the unconscious because we learn in different ways. Not like that. Don't be that. Not in this family, or not in this gender, or
Mhm.
this school or this friendship group. We learn, and often we learn harsh lessons. We might be ridiculed or humiliated or shamed, or
Mm.
there might be
Or
some fear.
ostracized.
Yeah, exactly. So
Mm.
there can be some sharp and strong emotions that wrap around certain attributes. Um, and so we think, gosh, well, I won't be doing that again. And so aspects of our personality can become detached from us, from our concept of self. We have a sifting and sorting process. So I'll start to form an identity that seems to kind of be the one that works for me in the context that I find myself in. It might be that I'm a good girl, the good one, the quiet one, for example, a lot
Mhm.
of girls. That persona will
Mm.
get me through. And then all that other stuff becomes relegated to the unconscious.
Mm.
And Jung gave us the term shadow. We have an
Mhm.
individual shadow, there's also a collective shadow, but I'm interested in the individual shadow because as a
Mm.
coach, I'm interested in growth. And
Yes.
if that's me too, then how, you know, it's mine. And it takes a lot of energy to deny all of that. I'm like this, I'm not like that. Oh
Mhm.
no, gosh, I'm not like that. And yet I am like that. And there's energy
Mm.
there, So if I can find a way to kind of come into relationship with that too, and get to know that and bring that home, actually, some of that energy is released back into my system. It's a
Mhm.
beautiful process. It's a beautiful process. So I don't have to keep it at bay, and I can get that uplift from kind of integrating that too.
Mm.
Mhm. Wow. Yeah, I like the way you describe or explain what a shadow is, but because sometimes, or at least me in the past, when I didn't know all these terms, or I was not near to the coaching space and the therapeutic space, I tended to think about the shadow as something bad, no? So that we left in the shadows the things that are not good. And what you are explaining, it also my experience, is actually the jewels
Yeah.
uh, of that you have in your earth that will get dig out, or that you get in contact,
Mm.
that they accompany you in the light life, right? And so, and yeah, it's a beautiful process. I think it's very fitting with what we are sharing in approaching the winter month and this dark month that we tend, or me, for example, when I came from Venezuela, which there's a lot of light, and then we are in near the Ecuador, and we are not so used to all these shadows or darkness or all these things, and it was quite a process to get used to winter. And through the years my relationship with winter has changed. It was something I dreaded, and I didn't want to be in this darkness and be inside, and now it's something I'm longing for.
Mm.
This, like, oh, I'm coming into my intimate space to get in contact with all these things that might not be in this light of summer, right? So yeah.
I
So,
love that.
I love that, Gabby. That kind of like is the longing. I think I've got that longing for winter now. Okay, I don't particularly like a lot of rain, but I quite like the darkness and the coziness. I made a
mhm.
very conscious decision today to put on a black sweatshirt with glitters in it because I
Mm,
do think that whole piece about lurking in the shadows or something dark and scary in the shadows. Actually, the gold, as Gabby's just said, that gold is there, and it's something that's quite. And I took this out of the work that I did with you earlier in the year. I think that the golden shadow is just so powerful.
Mm,
It's
mm,
so powerful.
mm,
It really does enrich if you lean in and sit with it for a while.
mm.
mm,
I love one of the things I love about shadow work is just that sense of equality. Um, t- I think it's Robert Bly who talks about this idea of the seesaw, and the fulcrum that that the seesaw pivots
Mhm.
on. He calls that the holy place, both
Mm.
as in holy, but a play on words because that's where things are whole here.
Mhm.
So if we strip away good, bad,
Mm.
light, good, dark, bad, shadow, scary,
Mhm.
don't, but actually about balance, that we're
Mhm.
seeking balance, we're seeking to bring things into wholeness.
Mhm.
Well, I can't be whole if I just have one side of the seesaw.
Mm.
Mm.
But I won't go looking for the other side if I
Mhm.
fear that that's bad.
Mm.
So yeah, stripping that away first of all is okay, there's a relief, then I can
Mm.
just go, I can go, I can
Mm.
be open with that sense of equality. I can say yes and open my heart to all of it because it's all the same. It's just data, material.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Actually, while listening to you, I think about the way it's looked at in the Chinese medicine. No, that during winter is the water season. So in the previous episode that we recorded with Sam, it was about this water and getting in touch with this water and this darkness. And on the same time, when you get acquainted with all this darkness, may fear may arise, which is the motion of water. But the other side of the coin, it's wisdom and faith and will. When you get into acquaintance with this fear, respecting, no,
Mm.
fear is, it has a purpose and it's important, and gives you a kind of respect for life and for the things you don't know. But on the other side, when you just sit and listen and quiet being there with that, you can develop this quality of having will and faith in life, faith in yourself in the things you don't see, and develop wisdom. And talking about wisdom, I'm curious to learn from all the things you do. What is this wisdom you draw from to your work or to your life? What are the jewels that nourish your work in sense of wisdom?
Mm. It's such a beautiful question, partly because I think there's probably 4,752 different ways to answer it. The more you sit with that question, it's so rich. But but for me, I can't really get much beyond, um, in a sense, the purity of what wisdom is. And
Mm-hmm.
and for me, I guess what I mean by that is, and you already talked about it you mentioned this idea of stillness. Um, my experience increasingly is that there's a phenomenal amount of wisdom that is sort of coded into the energy, into the air that we breathe. And we're
Mm-hmm.
so busy, in our lives, thrusting and driving and grabbing and grasping and tick, 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 tick. And when we stop doing that for a goddamn minute, guess what's there? The potent, beautiful, loving, wise, benevolent wisdom of the universe. Um, and there it is, all its elegant simplicity. And yet it's it feels like life's journey, life's work is to settle and still,
Mm-hmm.
long enough to let the inner ears do their work. That's all we need to be still enough so that the inner ears can have some space
Mm-hmm.
to tap in and listen. And that's been my experience really, that when I'm able to do that, um, it's the language of serendipity.
Mm-hmm.
Recognizing those small moments, um, just magic of opportunity, or images that drop in, or metaphor. Um, that's my sense then of how the wisdom kind of filters through.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it's not, for me, it's less about um, something that's kind of got or attained. It's more about um, when you're able to kind of tune into the poetry
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
of it. Um, yeah.
You mentioned Jung as well when you were earlier, and Robert Bly. So maybe is there something there that you're pulling on from their work, or people like that you might sort of absorb some of their teachings?
I mean, for sure, there's a whole roster then of, kind of people, teachers, mentors,
Mm.
practitioners, writers, poets, um, that all make up, um, um, I guess there's data in, isn't there, that's then mulched, that
Mm.
then, affects that impacts the inner ears, so the inner ears know what they're listening to. But that,
Mm.
yeah, so it's, but that feels different to wisdom. That feels more like knowledge.
Knowledge.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think that word just has such gravitas for me.
Mm.
It is something more than
Mm.
that for me anyway. That
Mm.
wisdom is the
No,
more,
that's great.
yeah. Whereas, teachers, of which, I've had so many, in the shadow field, and also people that I've worked with, kind of, therapists, energy healers,
Mm.
guides, mentors, friends, colleagues,
Mm.
yourself, like these really enriching conversations.
Mm-hmm.
It's the conversations, I think, that mulch the ground for wisdom. That's how
Mm.
I'd put it.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah, I like it because actually the way I feel wisdom is like a being for me, no? When we talk here with wisdom, I like the name with wisdom because it's like being walking together with wisdom, but not
Mm.
something that I possess. It's something that I let in my
Mm.
life, and that is like you are sharing available and in there, but you need to get still enough to catch it up and converse and dialogue with that. That is and it's my experience, no, what you are sharing. It's the way I write poetry.
Mm.
I don't think I am the one writing the poetry. It's a cooperation between whatever is available coming in through my senses from life and from the life experience, that then I am able to put into form. But it's put it into form together with this wisdom, this inspiration, this creativity that is in the ether or something like that. Yeah.
Mm.
Mm.
So yeah.
And that sort of serendipitous moment, I think, as well, when you
Mm-hmm.
have to, it's just being attuned to that and
Mm-hmm.
allowing ourselves just to kind of accept and see it without rushing by. So there's something, again, we've talked around this whole thing around slowing down. So we're in December. It is the beginning of the winter. I'm not in my book. It's the beginning of the winter, but this beginning of the real going into the darkness, and the opportunity, just taking the opportunity to slow down,
Mm.
um, and really slowing and being with, and not being scared as well. I think being in that quiet space. So a lot of the people I work with, and including myself, can be very busy. And the busyness masks, sorry, a little bit of fear.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So actually being able to sit in that quiet space, be on your own in the space, however you choose, um, allows some of those connections, I think, as well. Because wisdom for me feels like a little bit of connections. There's an opportunity for those connections to be witnessed and felt.
Do you know, it's a really lovely point, Sam. Thank you for the prompt, in the sense, because I think the thing that has enabled me to do the work that I do was, um, some training and getting skilled up in self-compassion practices. And
Mm.
isn't it funny that I certainly needed training talk about things that, should should be readily available, but it was like, oh dear God, no, having to drag myself to some training, for my clients, and then eventually like, oh, maybe there's something here for me. Maybe this is
Mm,
quite nice actually. And then the practice of self-compassion,
Mm.
because as much as we have the fear of the dark and fear of facing ourselves, um, there is something that wants to keep us um, kind of held in this place of discomfort too, I think, so that ease has to be finagled sometimes. You know how like
yes.
have to almost trick ourselves into being
Yes.
kind to ourselves and compassionate to ourselves, and have to remind ourselves to do the things that feel good. So self-compassion has become, a practice, a way of being. It can still slip off my radar at times, but it's become more of a place to return
Mm,
to. And
Mhm.
again, talk about mulch, that really has softened the ground so that I can do more of what you're talking about, which is the
mm,
stillness, the sitting in the darker spaces, sitting at the edge. Gabby, I love
mhm,
the way, talk about that. It's the edges,
Mhm.
that willingness to stay at the edges when things can feel a
mm,
bit crunchy.
mm,
So that's a really important part for me as well.
mm. Love it.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah, I also had to learn about self-compassion and think about these edges and how you meet between different phases, right? Before recording, I shared that I'm a chemical engineer by training. I used to work with substances that help in the physical world to soften these edges, and that's a way we are able to do things like emulsions and have a myriad of products that we enjoy every day, like paintings or creams that we use, face creams. The women is about the softening in the edges, right? If the two phases, if the water and oil will stay in the rigid state, or in their not meeting together, we will not produce all these beautiful things, right? And when I think about that, it brings me to my own process with my soul and my being, and how we find these kind of connectors. And one of these is what you mentioned, this self-compassion, um, witnessing oneself, right? And just thinking about that, how because it's not easy to bring people to want to work with the shadow. Most of the time I was brought to work, brought with my shadow just by urgency of
Mm.
surviving crisis, right? So how it's how from when you started and now, how do you perceive, or what is your experience in the world right now about the openness or the still um, reluctance to work with the shadow from when you go to organizations or things like that? How do you introduce this topic?
Well, I offer the work to coaches primarily because for me,
Mm,
as a
mm,
self, as a to add it to your reflective practice, it is a no-brainer as far as I'm concerned.
Mm,
I
mhm,
talked about the shadow having it has this energetic imperative to come home. So it's
mhm,
knocking on your shoulder anyway. It
mm,
wants to get to know you anyway. You talk about a crisis, it could
mhm,
be a shadow hijack, for example.
mhm,
You're doing something that's so out of character. Well, so we know that the shadow wants a relationship with us anyway. So to become skilled in meeting it halfway makes
mhm,
sense to me. It can take some of
mhm,
the real sting or the rug being pulled from under you. That can take some of that out of it. Um, so, for that both personal and professional, I think it makes sense for coaches, and so it's an easier sell perhaps than
mm,
other people. However, there is something so fascinating happening, isn't there, in the broader field, the world that we're living in, that talk about
mhm,
edges. We're
mhm,
all experiencing a sense of a world um, of edges, of things falling away,
mm,
of certainties falling away, So in the broader field, there's more discomfort anyway, is my
mhm,
experience, which, you know, makes sense then that more people might be asking how to find, more comfort and ease in a world that is discombobulating, frightening.
Mhm.
Um, and so that willingness, again, you spoke about it before, but any way that helps us cultivate openness when things want to slam shut
Mhm.
is the yes. Anything. And for me, shadow is one of those. It's a toolkit, really, a set of ways, but it it,
Mhm.
it helps us keep our hearts open,
Mhm.
and say yes to the
Mhm.
scary.
Mhm.
um, which
That
ultimately, gives us our exhale, doesn't it?
yes.
Mhm.
Otherwise we're trying to live our lives with a contracted breath, and
Mhm.
that's just impossible.
Yeah, that's my perception also, that we are called in the world right now. Many people that maybe wasn't interested or was not ready to work with this are called now because we are living in a big shadow world or being called with our shadows from collective, no?
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that I mean, honestly, when you were just speaking it, I actually scribbled something down because I've that discombobulated world that we are living in with when people are trying to define edges in, so you are here and you're
Mm-hmm.
not allowed here, and you know
Mm-hmm.
creating what's what I'm trying to find the word, creating divisions,
Mm-hmm.
almost like walls. And I've noticed a shadow part of me in recent days, which is anger, um, really come into the fore. Now, I've recognized it, and it has overwhelmed me from time to time, but I've also sat with it and I kind of realized why it's come through. Because it's saying, hold on a minute, I'm a woman of color and I have just as much right to be in
Mm-hmm.
this space. And so it's this, so how actually having a bit of conversation with that
Mm.
anger part of me in terms of manage thinking about the way that we share the message, because actually anger doesn't help, it just creates more barriers. It puts up the shutters again, or people will retreat. So it's finding a way of holding on to that energy,
Mm.
which is standing firm and being resolute. So I have to kind of think of different words around anger that make you think, okay, this is a better way to express that part of me. Now, I've come through that
Mm.
through having some work for myself over this last year and working on that. But for so many, many, many millions of people, they don't even give a second thought to the shadow, and it will be the negative energy that comes through those fear or anger or guilt or sad, and that will come through. And actually, if we support people to have that relationship with those shadow, those different parts of themselves which they may shun,
Mm.
actually they might find some new words to support themselves in those times. Am I making sense? I don't feel like I'm
Mm.
making sense here.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
it's like, finding a different word that still holds on to the energy of that emotion, that is able then to express what you're feeling.
Mm.
When I read many of the articles in the newspapers at the moment about the rise of the far right, it's terrifying. I find it terrifying. So I have to kind of think, okay, that's no good being terrified, Sam.
Mm.
Let's just think about it in a different way. What part of you can you draw on to support yourself and other people who may be feeling like this? Okay, I'm going to stop there for a minute while you process all of my little download there.
I mean, there's so much to say.
Mm.
How long have we got?
Yeah, I'm going to be asking another question in a minute. So let's just park that. But I just feel that actually having the opportunity to have those conversations with self, recognize, is important. So if anybody is out there watching, having a look at some of the shadow work or doing some of the readings,
And
maybe you could.
the one thing I would say, it's not. There's integrity, wholeness. So there's
Mm-hmm.
integrity in all of it. So not to shame this is what we so often do, isn't it? We shame
Mm.
ourselves
So
for
maybe I
having.
shamed my anger part, but I just tried to
Oh,
like,
really?
maybe it was more about a, let's think of it, let's think of expressing that in a different
Mm.
way.
Hmm.
And that interconnectedness, it won't just be anger. It will be anger with a tinge of fear. There may be some hate in there. We're
Mm,
receiving hate. So
mm,
our own hate will come forward. So
mm,
when we slow things down, that stillness and that tapping into that wisdom, as you were describing, it's allowing the kind of complexity to
mm,
reveal itself so that we
Hmm.
can, um, move beyond, um, anger bad,
yeah.
happy or whatever, and just say, wow, there's a gift. What richness. Look, I have a
Mm,
capacity for all of this. Um, but let me sit and listen quietly and let it
mm,
reveal itself over time because my sense is there's a lot, there's going to be a lot in
mm,
there
mm,
that's tender, but so wise and
Hmm.
necessary. And I will stop there. But yeah, there's so much to say.
Yeah.
So, oh, sorry, Gabby, go on.
No, I just wanted to comment about
Mm,
the anger. I'm just thinking.
mm,
I remember a quote that at the moment I don't recall who said it, but it says something like, "In times of destruction, create a poem, create a song,
mm,
create a movement, create connection,
mm,
create community." And
yeah.
in the Chinese medicine, it's anger is related to spring, to life,
Mm,
and to creation and creativity. And for me, anger with the years, it has turned into a more colorful.
yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
not so black and white
Yeah.
anger. It's that's why I said this quote, because it depends. You might use this energy. It's an energy, all these emotions and
Mm,
energy, and then when you do your work with the shadow, for me, or the shadow, or this slowing down and being with them, it's a space of freedom, because then you can like say, okay, what do I do with this energy? With fear you can like contract and retreat and separate, but also with fear you can open your heart and what you were saying, Teresa, no, open to the world and open more and be vulnerable
Mm,
and raw and in the not knowing space. And with anger you can like say it's the energy of life. Actually, it's the energy you come with, and you need volition
yes,
and
you have to
energy
push your way out.
to be born and
Mm,
to born something. Then it's okay, how do I go with this energy that it goes into, maybe you create songs and movements or something like that, or laws, people that can create laws. So that's at least my way nowadays to be with all these different emotions,
mm.
with more colorful shades.
mm,
And I think, and I don't want you to think that, that's sort of, and I'm not saying that anger's bad. I'm not absolutely
No,
not
no,
saying that, but it's just
I
about
got it.
rephrasing it. Yeah.
Yeah,
mm,
yeah,
And
yeah. That's
moving into the creation piece. So coming out of being the victim and going into being the creator.
yeah, yeah. No, no, I understood
Mm,
it. I think
mm,
that you put it quite well. No, it's just we are surprised to have this emotion and say, oh, let me watch it and think
mm,
about it, and then we have all these judgments and shame because we are angry, especially we women, no?
mm,
Because if
mm.
we were angry, we were hysterical or too emotional or too reactive or whatever. So no, we didn't have for many years right to our anger.
Yes. Yeah.
It's
Well,
yeah.
I'm going to ask you another question, Teresa, which is, eat it, answer it how you wish. But it's kind of like now, thinking about who you are right now. So how does the way you're living now align with your desired legacy when you're not around?
mm.
When there's no Teresa. Oh, the sun's come lighting
Wow,
in.
I like
Yeah,
it when
lovely. I'm just
light coming in.
the light just came in.
That was so gorgeous. I really
Oh,
loved
wonderful.
watching
So I just
that. Um, when I think about legacy, um, there's really only one thing that comes to mind. And I'm hesitating because it feels let me check what what's I think what it is it's really precious. And yet
Mhm.
my friend uses an expression, oh, your currency isn't valued here. And it's sort of the thing that's most precious to me,
Mm.
feel as though in the world that we live in as a legacy, it's like, oh no, that my legacy isn't valued here.
Mm.
Like
Mm.
because
Mhm.
Got you.
really, if I think about legacy, was she called Jessica Tandy, the actress who was in Fried Green Tomatoes at the Whistle Stop
Yes.
Cafe? She was, God knows how old she was in that film, I don't know. But do you know what she had? These eyes that just twinkled. She was maybe in her 80s, but she had this aliveness, this vibrancy, and this kindness. And there was, her life was written on her face. And the message was somehow, life is good. And that's the legacy I would like to leave, is
Mm.
is particularly what we've just been given to, that we've been talking about, that the world is getting crunchier and
Mm.
edgier and sharper and nastier, harder to digest
Mhm.
somehow. So as I say that, then actually I feel no, my leg that's absolutely the right legacy. So to be remembered as somebody who was able to shine some light. That's why when you asked that question,
That's
and
why
the
the light
light
came in the
came
window.
through.
Wow. Yeah.
It's the serendipity. So to be somebody who was able to shine some light back at the world,
Mm.
Mm.
um, and to offer that this softness that we've been talking about,
Mm.
kindness. So how
Mhm.
I'm doing that now is
Mm.
back to this thing around a self-compassion practice, cultivating kindness, meeting and softening my own edges,
Yeah,
Mhm.
saying
I love
yes
that.
to meeting the parts that are scarier and darker in me so that I can soften those and do my piece. If
Mm.
all of that amounts to a legacy that's kind eyes
Yeah.
that are able to kind of smile, if things, particularly if things are a little spooky and overwhelming out there, that would be a good legacy.
Mm.
Mm.
I love that. Kind eyes, a
Mhm.
smile, like a smiling heart. I kind of feel like that is.
Yeah.
It's a smiling heart.
And that takes work. I wasn't born with a
Mm.
smiling eye. Well, I was born with a smile, but you know,
Mhm.
it's not it for me, that's a journey, that's a pilgrimage, like
Mm.
it's a willingness and a conviction and a practice every day. It's
Mm.
far easier to terrifies me how close bitterness can be as a
Mhm.
Mm.
travel companion.
Mhm.
It's really frightening, and how seductive the
Mhm.
persecutor can be. You
Mhm.
know, those lines,
Mm.
as you talked about those divisions, well, being in feels really safe. So that stuff's seductive.
Mm.
Um, don't get me wrong, it would be sometimes in my life, it's like, God, it would be so much easier just to give in to that.
Mhm.
So it is a work. It is a
Mhm. Mhm.
um,
Mm.
Mm. So daily practice,
yeah, an
chance
intention.
to pause. In fact, you
Yeah.
shared before we press record a quote because we used that word pilgrimage just now. Maybe it's an opportunity for you to share that with everybody.
Yeah, yeah. So I don't it's on a WhatsApp group, and so I don't know who to reference the
Provenance.
quote
Mm.
to.
Mm.
Um but the serendipity of it just popping into my world this morning and just before we met. And it simply says, now the coldness merely asks you to tear your life apart and begin again. Pilgrim, throw it away, make it larger. I love that. I think it really sums up what we've
Mm,
been
definitely.
talking about. I love that. Throw it away could be so terrifying.
Hmm.
Make it larger could make it worth it.
Oh, I think this is a pause point here, isn't it, Gabby? I
Mm.
don't think we can add any more.
Mm.
Teresa, it's been an absolute joy having you here, sharing this conversation with you today, with the light streaming in, kind of real warmth in my heart now. Gabby.
And just feeling deep gratitude and warmth in my heart and my being. So thank you very much. I'm so grateful for this space and your time and your presence in here. And
Mm,
I couldn't think of a better way to end our year with such a guest like you. Thank you
mm,
very much.
yeah, a perfect,
Mm.
perfect guest. And so,
Yeah.
everybody, we will be signing off. It's December. We still have another couple of episodes to go. There'll be one on Christmas Eve and there'll be one on New Year's Eve. And we have some interesting things to share with you. And actually, this is an opportunity as people kind of wind down after the Christmas season and the winter season, the festivities of New Year. There is that quiet spot, that quiet spot before the new year begins where maybe you have an opportunity to listen to some of the videos and practice some of the experiences that we share with you to see if you can find another part of you that you would enjoy getting to know over these winter months and spending time with and having a chat and a conversation. So we will share Teresa's information in the show notes below. I'm going to sign off for today with everybody. So it's bye-bye for me. And what about
So,
you two?
so thank you very much for being here with us. Let us know what you think in the comments and like, share, subscribe. And we see each other another Wednesday with wisdom. Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Teresa.
Thank you for
Thank
having me.
you.
Lovely.
Bye.
Bye.